Hello my fellow tailors, you have been requesting this video for a while, so to thank you all for reaching 10,000 subscribers, I decided to make this big, full and detailed tutorial on Gurkha waistband. In this video I'm going to show you how to make a Gurkha waistband, literally starting from the template up to the finished project, including canvased waistband, the opening, the buckle holder, buttonholes, and the waistband lining. In this tutorial, I will focus mainly on making the left part. Why? Because the right one is done completely the same way, except for one small detail. It doesn't have the opening. So, without further ado, let's get right to tailoring. Let me start with a quick tip on cutting. First and foremost, before cutting or even buying clothes for a Gurkha project, you have to make sure that it can fit the pattern and all the major parts. Usually, such trousers are made with at least one or more commonly two pleats, which obviously makes the front pattern wider. Also, quite often, such trousers are made with cuffs. So keep in mind that you may need some extra cloth at the bottom of your back and front panels. But the most important thing is to fit the waistband. Gurkha waistband is both wider and about 30 cm longer than the classical one. So the waistband of typical classical trousers is usually 3.5–3.8 cm wide, depending on the style. But here, for example, my template is 6 cm wide, and that is only the inner part. It also requires extra cloth for seam allowances. And it is also longer than the usual waistband. It requires half the waist plus approximately 30 cm extension. So please make sure that you have purchased enough fabric and it also has sufficient width. So here I have a variety of buckles and D-rings. They are all different shapes and sizes. I honestly don't need that many, I just bought them for the sake of this video. At the end of this tutorial, I will show you how you can utilize not only buckles, but D-rings as well, so stay tuned. Here is an interesting thing. When you are looking for buckles online, for example, be very careful. Some vendors can indicate the outer length of the buckle, but the one you need is the inner dimension. So make sure that, for example, 3 cm or 30 mm buckle means that the length of the inner part is 3 cm, not the whole buckle size. This way you will always get the right one that fits your waistband template. And here are two almost similar buckles. They have the same inner length of 3 cm, but as you can see, the width of the spacing is different. This one is wide and another one is narrower. So if you plan on working with thicker, heavier cloth, look for buckles with a wider opening like this, so it can easily fit all the necessary parts. To make a waistband of the desirable length and width, we need a piece of natural body canvas. For this project, I chose rather light canvas. You may even see my hand through it a little bit. I recommend you getting canvas that weighs 180–200 grams per meter. We want our waistband to be light, thin, and not bulky. Usually canvas comes in two options, 80 or 160 centimeters wide. If you plan on working with long Gurkha waistbands, I recommend you purchasing a wider canvas. Here is a template I made for this project, and it is cut out of heat-resistant cardboard. For your convenience, I transferred it into a PDF file. You can download it by the link in the description. I made it so it easily fits a regular A4 sheet of paper. So there is no need in gluing pieces together. Just print it and transfer to the cardboard. You can also make your own template or modify mine. Here are some tips. For instance, My template is designed for a 3 cm buckle and the waistband is 6 cm wide. But actually I made this extension a couple millimeters narrower because there will be some thickness of cloth and canvas added during the manufacturing process, so you have to take that into account. Let's say you need to make a template for a 2 cm buckle. Make extension 1 or 2 millimeters narrower, and the width of waistband itself is better be at least 3 cm wider or even more. As I have already mentioned, make sure that after cutting you have a strip of fabric for waistband that is wide enough to fit the template. Also, here I have some extra cuts of cloth for welts and buckle holders that we are gonna be making later. And for waistband lining I am using this black cotton pocketing. You can use any mid-weight cotton that you have at your disposal. It can be quality pocketing or even non-see-through poplin shirting. We're gonna be making only a waistband because the unique waistband construction is what makes trousers or shorts Gurkhas. To follow this tutorial, you need to have the left part of trousers ready, front and back parts connected at the side seam. Here, lining is already in, a part of the fly is ready, in this case it is a button fly. One central pleat is closed and machined, a slanted side pocket is in and it's temporarily closed with basting. 2 back darts are machined. On the left panel I don't have a back pocket. I made it only on the right back panel. And I've already trimmed and shaped my waistline, so it is ready for the waistband to be attached. Here I have a 1 cm seam allowance for that. But if you don't know how to draft, cut and make classical bespoke trousers, you can enroll into my full online trouser making course to learn the whole process from A to Z in great detail, but more about that at the end of the video and in the description below. Now we have to measure half of the waistline and add extension to find out how much canvas and cloth we need. The red line indicates the beginning of our extension. It aligns with the edge of the fly. Here I have 55 centimeters plus extension, it is 81 centimeters. But we will be working with natural canvas. It shrinks and frays quite often, so we need to have some extra length for that. Let's add another 5 centimeters. So the length for my canvas waistband strip has to be at least 86 centimeters or even slightly more. Let's cut and prepare canvas that is going to be our waistband interlining. So we have found out that I need at least 86 centimeters for my waistband. Let's make it 87, just in case. My template is 6 centimeters wide, but I will cut plus 1 centimeter each side, and it gives me 8 centimeters. And I'm cutting 2 waistband interlinings at the same time, so I need a 16 centimeter wide strip. The length is 87 and the width for both is 16 centimeters. Remember these dimensions, they will be very important in a moment. Next we have to shrink our canvas. Of course, to make things quicker, for future projects you can put the whole cut into the water and shrink it all together. But I want to show you something with this canvas strip That is why I will pre-treat it separately. Soak the canvas in boiling hot water and leave it until it gets to the room temperature. Then take it out, squeeze the excess water, and hang it out to dry. After canvas dries out, it usually gets a bit wrinkly, so give it a quick press. Okay, this is an interesting part. Initially, this piece was 16 by 87 centimeters, but after shrinking it in hot water, now it is 15 centimeters wide. So we lost 1 centimeter of width already, and the length now is 85, so minus 2 centimeters. That is why I recommended adding more to width and length. If you haven't done it already, also properly press shrink the cloth for your waistband, because we don't want it to shrink in the finished garment. Here is a tip. I recommend you starching the canvas. I use spray starch for it. It comes in different brands, so it doesn't really matter which one you get. At first, I will starch only a half to show you the difference, so before and after. One half is starched, and as you can see, it got stiffer and more structured, and the other half is soft and loose. Starching slightly prevents canvas from fraying because it has gluing effect, and it is much easier to cut from a stiff and stable piece rather than from a softer one. You got to try it to feel the difference. So now I will starch the rest, of course. My waistband is gonna be 6 centimeters wide, so let's mark a 6 centimeter strip using the whole canvas length. Using the template, shape the extension. From red marking, I measure the half of my trouser waistline, which is 55 centimeters. So it is 81 centimeters in total, my full waistband measurement. And here I have some extra length left. I'll keep it for a while just in case. We'll trim it later. You may cut canvas using a rotary blade if you are proficient with it. I am a bit old school, so I prefer shears. Okay, one canvas interlining is ready, and this piece I'm saving for the right part. I will make it off screen. Put the waistband cloth wrong side up. Roughly shape this part. And pin them together. and baste the canvas to the cloth. The first row of basting goes through the center. The next two are approximately 5 mm from the edge of canvas interlining. It is important to baste close to the edge for future finishing and attaching. This is how it looks on the other side. Mark and trim 1 cm seam allowance at the top edge and at the tip of extension. Fold and press allowances onto the canvas interlining, using its hard edge as a guideline. And lightly baste it. Here is a tip for folding this part. Trim the corner to reduce thickness and then fold the rest inside. In the previous video, my subscribers almost unanimously voted against background music, so from now on there will be no annoying and distracting music in my tutorials. Thank you all for your kind feedback and comments. Now we have to secure the whole basted allowance with a cross stitch. While cross-stitching, make sure you catch only canvas with your needle, Don't go too deep in order not to have visible stitches on the right side of the waistband. You can also secure folded allowances at the tip with the slip stitching. It is optional though, because the most part of it will be covered with cotton lining. Give it a light press and remove the basting. Okay, the tip and the top edge are cross-stitched. Now we have to trim the bottom edge also 1 cm to get a seam allowance for attachment. And let's restore the red line marking. Match this mark with the edge of the fly and base the waistband to the left trouser panel. Here's the excess. I keep it until I'm sure I won't need it. Attach the waistband machining around 2 mm from the canvas edge. Carefully flip it up, making sure the canvas is laying nice and flat. Press it and baste. Now we can press and baste the bottom part of the extension allowance. And we have to cross-stitch the bottom allowance the same way we did the top one. Now we can remove all the basting from the waistband. Give it a press. And admire the result. So we have assembled the waistband, attached it to the trousers, and finished it with cross-stitching. The basting is out. Now that I'm pretty happy with the result and don't plan on making any alterations, I can get rid of the extra piece. Next step is making an opening for the extension. At first, let's talk about the positioning. I would say the position of the opening is a matter of design and preference. For example, when trousers are fastened and you want this extension to be more visible, you can place an opening here, closer to the fly. In this case, this part will come out here and the waistband extension of the right part will be rather exposed. But I prefer moving the opening a bit closer to the side seam. So relatively small part of the extension is visible, and this way the trouser front looks cleaner in my opinion. But it is totally up to you. You may experiment with its position and find a preferred one. I'm going to mark it 2 cm to the right from my central pleat. Now let's mark the width. Find the center of the waistband first. The opening has to be wide enough to fit our extension, so I am marking it a couple millimeters wider. Double check to make sure it is centered. You can also check it with the part that is already done. Add 1 cm each side from the initial line. Insert pins into the corners and transfer their positions onto the canvas. Separate canvas from the cloth in order not to damage it, and carefully cut out this rectangle. Let's prepare welts. Here is my leftover piece and it is on grain. Here is a stretchy cross grain and we need the welts to be on grain to keep their shape over the time. The length is gonna be 6 cm, the same as the width of our waistband, and the width of each one is around 4. Mark the wrong side. Here I have a lightweight fusible. By the way, some fusibles also have more stable, non-stretchy side, and I'm gonna use this advantage. Fuse the wrong side. I don't usually fuse my welts, but these ones will get a lot of friction and strain, so it is a nice touch to reinforce them. Fold approximately 1.5 centimeters. I do it by eye, but you can measure it. Both welts are ready, and we have to attach them, aligning the folded edge with these lines, like this. Retrace the width of opening onto the welt. Now we will be attaching it from one mark to another, 5 mm from the folded edge. Fold it aside and make the other one the same way. Here is the result. Make sure the spacing on the wrong side here is 1 centimeter. Cut the cloth towards the corners as shown, leaving there 1 mm uncut. Turn the welts to the wrong side and press. The opening is almost ready. The only thing left is to machine these triangles, like this, on both sides. Now you can trim the welts. And you can trim even more to reduce unnecessary thickness. As a result, I made them as thin and small as possible. The welts are secured all around with cross-stitching. It is an optional extra step though, and you may skip it, but I prefer everything to be secured nicely, and in this case the welts won't be moving during the lining attachment. So the opening is ready. I think it looks nice. And you can even check how it works by sliding in our extension. So the opening is done, and now we can start making the buckle holder or buckle strap. I'll keep cutting my leftover piece on grain. The length I need is 24 centimeters and 5 centimeters is the width. So here are two 1 centimeter seam allowances, and inside part is 3 centimeters wide because our buckle is 3 centimeters. You may cut two of them together. Fold it in half, right side inside. Mark approximately 3 centimeters from the folded edge. Here is our seam allowance, and let's make this part a little bit tapered. Later I'll explain why. After we machine both sides, give it a light press. We have cut it on grain to prevent it from stretching, but because I will be making handmade buttonholes here, I decided to lightly fuse the top layer. It is an optional step. Of course, I could fuse the whole thing before machining, but I don't like the interlining to go inside the seams. It creates thickness and bulkiness at the edges, and we need the strap to be thin to fit the buckle nicely. Trim allowances up to 5 mm. And turn it inside out. Baste, evening out the edges. I think it's a perfect fit. This is a fused right side, so I am marking the wrong one. On the right side, let's find the center. Then, first buttonhole starts 1 cm from the edge. I will be using a thin 13 mm button later, so a 15 mm buttonhole is more than enough. This is my first buttonhole, then make a 1 cm spacing. And here is gonna be a round buttonhole or an eyelet. Now I will machine a frame for my future buttonhole. More about that you can learn from my previous video on this channel. Put the strap inside the buckle so the future round buttonhole aligns with the central bar and secure it with a pin. To find the place for this buckle strap, we may once again use my very convenient template. And because both extensions will meet at this point when fastened, we can do this. Now it is easy to find a right place for a buckle. So a first buttonhole I usually mark 3.5 or 4 cm from this point. The next ones will have a spacing of 2 cm between them. Spacing and the number of buttonholes or eyelets is up to you, but we'll talk more about it later. I want my buckle to be fastened through the first buttonhole, so I have to place it like this. From this raw edge, mark 5 mm and flip it like this, wrong side up. This is our line for machining. I machined 5 mm from the raw edge. That is how it looks on the wrong side. Trim corners to avoid bulkiness. Press and baste. We may remove some parts of the basting. And since our buckle strap is 3 cm wide, let's mark here also 3 cm to create a nice squared shape. You may finish this edge with slip stitching, but this is also an optional step. You may leave it as it is. And this part you may secure by machine or step stitch, which I'm showing right now. Remove the basting and press lightly. Buckle strap is attached. Now we have to cut and prepare waistband lining. Here I have got one layer of cotton pocketing. The length of my left waistband is 81 cm, and I will be adding another 5 cm for shrinkage and seam allowances. So I mark 86 cm. Here, waistband width plus 2 cm for allowances. In my case, it is 6 cm plus 2. In result, it is 8 cm wide and 81 plus 5 cm long. And since it is cotton, make sure to shrink it before attaching. Here is the center. Place our template and shape the extension. As you can see here and here, we already have seam allowances. Now we need to add them for extension piece, also 1 cm. All seam allowances are in, and now using our template, press a 1 cm at the top edge onto the wrong side and the same goes for the tip. Here is the result. We have assembled the entire Gurkha waistband, made an opening and a buckle holder. The last thing is to cover the inner part of it with waistband lining. Here is the wrong side of our lining with the folded seam allowance. Put it like this and pin. We need to transfer the position of the opening onto the lining. Add 1 cm for seam allowance to this line and trim. So it goes like this. Take the other part, place it on top and pin together. Trace the width of the opening onto the lining. And I will be machining to this point 1 cm from the raw edge. I machined here and here 1 cm from the raw edges. Press flat and press open. Trim corners to make this area thin. Fold and press the allowance back. Align to openings and baste around. Proceed with basting the lining to the waistband. Next, fold, press and baste the bottom seam allowance. So, I have basted the opening and entire lining. I didn't go all the way, because we will have to finish the center back seam this way. So that is why I keep this piece unbasted for now. And we are gonna finish the lining by hand. So let me show you how to do it. I will be attaching the lining with tone-on-tone black thread. That is why I want to show you the technique on a sample with a contrast thread. In this case, we'll be using pick stitching. The goal here is to go through all the layers of lining, connecting it to the waistband. You can even catch some canvas with a needle. But of course, no stitches should be visible on the right side of the waistband. The distance between stitches has to be no more than 5 mm or even less, because the pig stitching is functional and we don't need big gaps between stitches. And while I'm stitching, please share in the comments why do you choose to make Gurkha trousers. I'm just curious why people like it. Is it because of their unusual design or functionality and comfort? Thank you for your comments and feedback. As you can see, only small dots are visible on the waistband lining. The bottom edge of the lining I am attaching to the seam allowance that was pressed onto the waistband. Finish the opening connecting both layers with the slip stitching. After we finished everything by hand, we may remove the basting. Press the lining nicely. And now we are ready to finish the waistband by adding buttonholes here and on the buckle strap. Find the center and from the tip of the extension mark 3.5 centimeters. So 3 buttonholes are the minimum. You can make 4, 5 or even 6. But the optimal and the most common number is usually between 3 and 5. Also, the spacing may vary between 2 and 4 centimeters or more. So the smaller the spacing, the more eyelets you can fit there, and the more adjustable your waistband gets. Here you may make a regular keyhole buttonholes, like on these Rubinacci trousers, or you can install metal eyelets. But since they require additional tools and not everyone has them, I want to show you how to make round buttonholes by hand to make the tutorial accessible for everyone. Before making buttonholes, baste around to keep all the layers together. I'll be using 100% silk thread by Gurkha. I guess the color 702 is better in this case. For more information on other thread options, check out my video on buttonholes. Wax the thread and remove the excess with hot iron and piece of fabric. We also need a hole puncher, but if you don't have this tool, you can try finding such simple puncher at a hardware store. The hole is 4 mm in diameter. The technique and principle of stitching here are the same that I have shown in my shirt buttonhole video. I think it looks pretty nice. Remove the basting and lightly press. Off screen, I made 2 buttonholes on the buckle strap. I didn't show this one because I'm covering it in the video I have already mentioned, and also another round buttonhole here for a buckle. Fold the holder this way so the round buttonhole goes through the fold. Mark and attach the button. So here I have attached my thin mother of pearl button. And I want to mention that I made these corners slightly mitered so that they don't stick out here. We have completed the left part. The waistband is done with all the necessary elements, the opening, the buckle holder or the buckle strap, all the buttonholes and lining are in. Off screen I made the right part exactly the same way, except it doesn't have an opening. But before we proceed to finishing, I want to share with you one useful tip for cutting the right panel waistband. As you remember, we measured the left part like this, from center back edge to the fly. It was 55 centimeters, and then we added the extension length. But let's look at the right panel. In this case, my 55 centimeters are gonna be from center back edge to this point. And then we have a flight shield here. That means that this distance will be longer by the width of the flight shield, which is 4 centimeters in my case. If you cut a right waistband aligning the red line with this edge, you will get extra 4 centimeters here, and this excess will be sticking out of the buckle. So the right waistband will get longer by this amount, and we got to keep this in mind while cutting. To avoid this extra piece, you have 2 options. The first one is to cut and attach your waistband aligning the red line with this edge, as we did it with the left panel. It's possible that you will have to shape this part a touch to make a smooth transition. This way you will get the same extension length on the right panel as on the left. Or you can measure and attach it like this. But in this case, you will have to shorten the tip of extension by this amount. This will also balance both extension lengths and no excess will stick out. Now I will machine the center back seam and I will show you how to finish the lining. The center back seam is machined, let's press it open. To make the finishing easier, you may secure this inlay with cross-stitching. But don't go till the very end, we need some space there to finish the lining. Fold the lining and pin it. Take the top seam allowance of the lining and put it behind the pressed open inlay of the center back seam. and finish it with the same thread and technique we did the whole waistband. The other part I made off screen to save your time. Now let's put on the buckle and see the result. So the buckle is on, and you may ask, why to make it buttoned instead of just sewing it into the holder permanently? Of course, you can secure it in place by a row of stitching here. But the first benefit of this technique is that you can remove the buckle before taking your trousers to dry cleaners, and in this case, your buckles won't get accidentally scratched or damaged by chemicals. Another cool option is that you can style your Gurkha trousers by quickly swapping between different buckles. For example, you may decide to put on gold-plated ones to match your watch, or let's say you may prefer using black buckles if you don't feel like wearing anything shiny at the moment. And that is why we made this buckle strap in this interesting but slightly intricate way. But let's say you don't want to use buckles or make buttonholes. Maybe you just don't like them. No problem, you may use D-rings. In this case, you don't make any of buttonholes. Then you secure both D-rings by permanent stitching here, like that. This strap should be longer and of course with no buttonholes on it. It doesn't look very nice right now because the strap has holes in it, but you get the idea. As you can see, using the method I have shown in this tutorial, you can make all kinds of Gurkha trousers with different styles of fastenings. Classical with a buckle, with rings or D-rings, and even fully buttoned without any buckles whatsoever. Or you may even come up with more interesting designs, like a very creative and talented student of my bespoke trouser making course does. He likes to find unconventional sliders and clasps online and then incorporates them into Gurkha waistbands, getting new, clean-looking and minimalistic designs. Speaking of my students, if you've always dreamed of learning how to make bespoke tailored garments such as trousers, shirts or jackets, step by step, completely from scratch, email or DM me on Instagram to enroll into practical and detailed online tailoring courses. My contact information is in the description. So in this tutorial we have completed a double extended Gurkha waistband completely from scratch. You can use it to make multiple styles and varieties of Gurkha trousers or summer shorts. And even though we used canvas instead of just fusible interlining, we managed to keep the waistband light and thin. Of course, it is just one of many ways to make Gurkha waistband, and my goal was to share with you the template, my technique, and all the necessary tips, tricks, and principles for you to succeed. Next, you can simplify or change some parts of my method to your liking. If this video was helpful, and if you want to support the channel and sponsor purchasing fabrics and trimmings for the next tutorials, you may become an important and valued member of this channel. Membership gives you a bunch of cool benefits like loyalty badges next to your name in the comments, custom emojis, member-only polls, and much more. Your support will be rewarded and highly appreciated. Subscribe to my Instagram for more useful bespoke tailoring content and communication. And I would be very happy if you tag me in the Instagram post with your Gurkha trousers you made with my tutorial. And if you have any questions on bespoke tailoring, feel free to ask them in the comment section. See you in the next one. Take care.